The first probe entered Sol system on a Tuesday morning, its sleek obsidian hull reflecting nothing but the void between stars. Admiral Kate Morrison watched it approach on the holographic display aboard Terra Station, her coffee growing cold as the alien craft's intentions became clear. "Ma'am, it's broadcasting some kind of signal," reported Lieutenant Dave Park, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "Not directed at us, it's scanning our defense grid." Kate's jaw tightened. Humanity had spent the last 50 years building the most sophisticated planetary defense network in known space. A maze of interconnected satellites, orbital platforms, and ground-based installations that could repel any conventional invasion. The Hegemony Alliance had mocked Earth's paranoid preparations during the peace negotiations, calling humans obsessively militaristic. Now she understood why. The probe suddenly accelerated, diving toward the inner system with impossible grace. Kate's tactical display lit up with warnings as the intruder began transmitting rapid-fire data bursts toward the outer rim of their solar system. "It's not just scanning," Dave said, his voice tight with realization. "It's mapping our entire network architecture. Every satellite, every relay station, every get-me fleet command," Kate ordered, her years of military training overriding the chill running down her spine, "and prep the emergency protocols." Within minutes, Admiral Ross Chen's weathered face appeared on the main screen from Luna Base. "Kate, what's your assessment?" "This isn't reconnaissance, sir. They're preparing to hack our defense grid." She gestured to the probe's trajectory. "Look at its pattern, it's specifically targeting our communication nodes." Ross's expression darkened. The Hegemony signed the non-aggression treaty just 6 months ago. Apparently, they had their fingers crossed. Kate pulled up the probes. "Data signatures, sir. This isn't random. They know exactly what they're looking for. Someone gave them our system specifications." The implications hung heavy in the artificial atmosphere of the station. Humanity had joined the galactic community as junior partners, eager to trade their raw materials and manufacturing capabilities for advanced technology and protection. The Hegemony Alliance, a confederation of 12 ancient species, had welcomed Earth with open arms and flowery speeches about cooperation and mutual benefit. Kate watched the probe disappear behind Mars, her mind racing. Humans had always been different from their galactic neighbors, where other species had evolved in relative isolation. Developing single-minded specializations, humanity had clawed its way up through countless challenges. Every threat had made them stronger, more adaptable, more creative. The other species saw this as primitive aggression. Kate was beginning to understand it might be their greatest strength. "Ma'am," Dave interrupted her thoughts. "We're getting reports from the outer system. Multiple contacts, all broadcasting the same scanning signature." Kate felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't exploration, it was preparation for invasion. The Hegemony had studied humanity for months, learned their defenses, and now they were moving to neutralize the one thing that might stand in their way. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed humans would react like any other species, with panic, with appeals to distant allies, with desperate negotiations. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Kate smiled grimly as she watched the tactical display update with dozens of new contacts. The Hegemony was about to learn why humans had survived everything their homeworld could throw at them. "Dave, send a message to all defense stations," she ordered. "Condition red, and get me the president." The Hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace, at the edge of Sol system like a steel curtain falling across the stars. 300 ships of various classes, from sleek corvettes to massive dreadnoughts, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Their commanders had studied every human engagement, analyzed every tactical doctrine, and prepared countermeasures for every known strategy. Admiral Vel of the Corvani Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the holographic display with satisfaction. The preliminary scans were complete. Earth's defense grid was mapped down to the last relay satellite. His technical specialists had already identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in the human network. "Begin Phase 1, he ordered in the clicking language of his people. "Initiate the data intrusion." Across the fleet, specialized hacking ships powered up their quantum infiltration arrays. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: disable Earth's defense grid through cyber warfare, then move in with overwhelming force. The humans would surrender rather than face annihilation, and the Hegemony would claim Sol System's abundant resources without the messy complications of orbital bombardment. The first wave of intrusion codes hit Earth's defense network like a digital tsunami. Thousands of attack vectors, each tailored to exploit specific weaknesses in human technology, flooded through subspace channels toward their targets. On Terra Station, Kate watched her displays flicker as the first cyber attacks began. Warning lights bathed the command center in red as defensive systems engaged. "Ma'am, they're good," Dave reported, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked to counter the intrusion. "Their attack patterns are adaptive. Every time we block one vector, They're already shifting to another. Kate nodded grimly. How long until they break through? At this rate, maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Kate had planned for this moment, but the reality was more terrifying than any simulation. She activated her personal communicator. Mr. President, we're go for Lazarus Protocol. President Miller's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Admiral, are you certain? Once we activate Lazarus, there's no going back, sir. They're not here to negotiate. This is an invasion. Kate watched another section of the defense grid flicker under assault. Lazarus is our only option. Then God help us all. Lazarus Protocol is authorized. Kate turned to a communications officer. Send the activation codes to all stations. Full spectrum implementation. What the hegemony didn't understand about humans was the same thing that had confused their galactic neighbors for decades. Other species had evolved on worlds where cooperation meant survival. They built societies based on mutual trust and shared resources. Humanity had evolved on a world where betrayal was common, where trust had to be earned, and where survival often meant being prepared for the unthinkable. The Lazarus Protocol was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, developed in the paranoid, an assumption that their new galactic allies might one day become enemies. Every human defense installation had been built with a secret secondary purpose. Every communication relay had hidden functions, and every satellite carried more than just sensors. As the activation code spread through the defense network, Kate felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had spent 50 years building trust with their galactic neighbors, but they had also spent those same 50 years preparing for this moment. Lazarus Protocol is active, Dave reported. All stations, confirm ready status. On his flagship, Admiral Vell watched his technical teams work with growing confidence. Human encryption was proving remarkably brittle under sustained assault. Several defense satellites had already gone dark, their control systems compromised by hegemony intrusion codes. Excellent progress, he told his communications officer. Signal the fleet prepare for Phase 2. Once the grid is down, we move to orbital positions. But something was wrong. The human satellites that had gone dark weren't staying dark. They were coming back online with completely different signatures, and the defense installations that should have been crippled by the cyber attack were suddenly broadcasting on frequencies that didn't exist in any technical database. Sir, his sensor operator called out, confusion clear in his translated voice. I'm reading massive power buildups throughout the human defense network. This doesn't match their known capabilities. Admiral Vell felt the first stirring of unease. Explain. Every human installation is drawing exponentially more power than our intelligence indicated was possible, and sir, they're all targeting us. The transformation of Earth's defense grid was like watching a sleeping giant awaken. Satellites that had appeared to be simple communication relays began unfolding hidden weapon systems. Orbital platforms doubled in size as concealed sections deployed. Ground-based installations that intelligence had marked as sensor stations revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous. Admiral Vell stared at his tactical display in growing horror as the true scope of human deception became clear. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks mapped every human installation for months. His intelligence officer, a tall being from the Nexary Collective, seemed to shrink into his chair. Sir, the humans appear to have been operating under what they call need-to-know protocols. Each installation had multiple hidden functions that were only activated by specific command codes. Are you telling me, Vell's voice carried the edge of barely controlled fury, that we have been observing elaborate decoys for over a year? Not decoys, sir, dual-purpose installations. Every legitimate function we observed was real, but they were also hiding secondary military capabilities. On Terra Station, Kate watched the deployment with grim satisfaction. The Lazarus Protocol had taken 30 years to implement, involving the secret militarization of every human space installation. Communications, satellites carried particle beam weapons, weather monitoring stations housed missile launchers. Even civilian cargo platforms had been built with hidden weapon base. All stations report full deployment, Dave announced. We have target locks on the entire hegemony fleet. Kate opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. Admiral Vell of the Corvania Empire. This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You have violated our sovereign space and attempted to compromise our defense systems. You have one opportunity to withdraw. Vell's response came through. The translator with obvious anger. Admiral Morrison, your species signed agreements limiting your military development. These installations violate galactic law. Kate's laugh was cold. Admiral, you might want to read those agreements more carefully. We agreed to limit our offensive capabilities beyond our home system. Everything you're looking at is defensive, and it's all within Sol system. The truth was more complex than Kate's simple explanation, but the underlying principle was sound. Humanity's lawyers had spent years crafting agreements that appeared to limit their military growth while actually protecting their right to defend their home system. The other species, accustomed to straightforward negotiations, had missed the subtle loopholes that human legal tradition had evolved over millennia of conflict. You cannot possibly have weapons capable of threatening our fleet, Vell transmitted. Your technology level is centuries behind ours. Admiral, You're about to learn something important about human engineering. Kate gestured to Dave, who began the targeting sequence. We don't build better technology, we build more of it. The first salvo lit up space between Earth and the hegemony fleet like a new constellation being born. Thousands of weapons, hidden throughout the Sol system for decades, fired simultaneously. The attack wasn't sophisticated by galactic standards. Human weapons were crude and inefficient, but there were so many of them that sophistication became irrelevant. The hegemony fleet found itself under assault from every direction at once. Particle beams lanced out from asteroids that should have been empty rock. Missiles emerged from cargo containers that had been drifting in space for years. Even the outer planets began launching attacks. Humanity had been busy during their 50 years of peaceful membership in the galactic community. Admiral Vel's flagship shuddered under multiple impacts as his shields struggled to cope with the sheer volume of incoming fire and possible. Our intelligence showed nothing like this level of militarization, sir, his tactical officer reported. They're using quantity tactics. Individual weapons are weak, but there are thousands of them. Our shields can't handle this much distributed damage. Vel watched his fleet formation begin to crumble as ships peeled away from the attack, their captains making individual decisions to preserve their vessels. This wasn't how civilized warfare was conducted. Battles were supposed to be formal affairs between matched fleets, decided by superior tactics and technology, not by crude overwhelming firepower. All ships emergency jump, Vel ordered. Retreat to rally point 7. But as his fleet began to disengage, Kate played her final card. The real purpose of the cyber attack the humans had endured became clear. They had traced the intrusion codes back to their source, mapping the hegemony's communication networks in real fire. Prometheus, Kate ordered quietly. Throughout Sol system, humanity's most carefully guarded secret revealed itself. Hidden within their communication relays were not just weapons, but sophisticated hacking systems of their own. As the hegemony fleet attempted to retreat, Earth's hackers struck back along the same vectors the aliens had used to attack them. The hegemony fleet's retreat became a rout as Earth's counterstrike hit their systems. Ships that had been preparing for hyperspace jumps found their navigation computers compromised. Communications networks that had coordinated the invasion began broadcasting contradictory orders. Most devastating of all, the same quantum links the hegemony had used to hack Earth's defenses now carried human viruses back to their home systems. Admiral Vel watched his command structure disintegrate in real report, he demanded as another section of his tactical display went dark. Sir, they've infiltrated our entire communication grid, his technical officer reported, panic clear in his translated voice. Every ship that participated in the cyber attack is now compromised, and the intrusion is spreading through our quantum relays. Back to the officer's words were cut off as his console exploded in sparks. Throughout the flagship, systems began failing in cascade patterns as human malware ate through their networks like digital acid. Kate watched the chaos from Terra Station with professional admiration. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's masterpiece of cyber warfare. 50 years of studying alien technology had given them unprecedented insight into hegemony systems. Every trade agreement, every technology transfer, every peaceful exchange had been an opportunity to learn their neighbors' weaknesses. Ma'am, we're getting reports from deep space monitoring stations, Dave announced. The intrusion has jumped to multiple hegemony home systems. Their communication networks are going dark across 17 star systems. Kate felt a moment of genuine sadness. She had hoped it would never come to this. Casualty reports. Military targets only, as programmed. But their entire interstellar communication grid is collapsing. They are losing contact with colonies, trade networks, defensive installations. The scope of human retaliation was becoming clear. The hegemony had attempted to disable Earth's defenses through cyber warfare, but humanity had turned their own weapon against them with devastating effectiveness. 50 years of paranoid preparation had created not just a defensive network, but a doomsday weapon capable of crippling entire civilizations. Admiral Vel's flagship shuddered as another system failed. Around him, his fleet was scattering in panic as individual captains lost contact with their commanders. The elegant formations that had entered Sol system were now a chaotic mass of damaged ships fleeing in random directions. Sir, incoming transmission from the human admiral, his communications officer reported. Put it through. Kate's image appeared on Vel's main screen, her expression cold but professional. Admiral Vel, I'm prepared to offer you terms. Terms. Vel's pride warred with the reality of his situation. You have violated every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral, you tried to hack our defense systems and invade our home. We responded in kind. Kate's voice carried no trace of gloating, only tired authority. Your fleet is crippled, and our counter-intrusion is spreading through your networks. How many of your people have to suffer because of your leadership's decisions? Vel looked around his damaged bridge, seeing his officers staring at him with mixtures of fear and accusation. The invasion had been his idea, supported by the Hegemony Council's arrogant assumption that humans would be easy prey. What terms? He asked quietly. Complete withdrawal from Sol system. formal recognition of Earth's sovereign territory, and a guarantee that there will be no further aggressive actions against humanity. And if we refuse, Kate's expression didn't change. Admiral, your home systems are currently experiencing what we call a cascading network failure. Every second you delay increases the damage. Some of your colonies have already lost contact with their homeworlds. How long before your civilization, it starts to fragment? The threat was clear. Humanity had demonstrated the ability to cripple interstellar communication across multiple star systems simultaneously. 4 species that had grown dependent on instant galactic communication. This was equivalent to a nuclear strike at the heart of their civilization. The Hegemony Council will never accept these terms, Vel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then they can explain to their people why they chose pride over survival. Kate leaned forward. Admiral, I'm not enjoying this. 50 years ago we hoped joining the galactic community would mean the end of human conflict, but you've taught us that the universe is still a dangerous place, and humans are still very good at surviving dangerous places. Vel felt the weight of command crushing down on him. He had led his fleet into what should have been a simple intimidation mission, and instead triggered a war that could destroy multiple civilizations. I need to consult with the Council, he said finally. You have 6 hours, Admiral. After that, we stop being selective about our targets. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council convened in chaos. Representatives from 12 species gathered in their great chamber, but for the first time in centuries, they could not achieve instant communication with their homeworlds. Earth's cyber attack had severed the quantum communication links that held their empire together, leaving them isolated and increasingly desperate. Council leader Thax of the Althari Federation called for order, but his usual authority was undermined by the cascade of bad news flowing in from the few remaining communication nodes. The situation is unprecedented, he announced to the assembled delegates. The human counterattack has exceeded all projections. 17 core systems have lost interstellar communication. 3 colony worlds have declared local autonomy after losing contact with their governments. Trade networks across the outer rim have collapsed completely. Representative Quinn of the Nexari Collective stood to address the chamber. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that human technology was centuries behind our own. Because we misunderstood what we were observing, Admiral Vel said from his position at the speaker's podium. His fleet had limped back to hegemony space, but the damage to his reputation was permanent. Humans don't build superior technology, they build redundant technology. Their entire defense network was designed from the beginning to survive and counter exactly the type of attack we launched. Thax's multiple eyes focused on the disgraced Admiral. Are you suggesting this was planned? Council leader, humanity spent 50 years preparing for this scenario while simultaneously appearing to integrate peacefully into our community. Every treaty they signed, every technology they acquired, every diplomatic exchange was part of a comprehensive intelligence gathering operation. The implications sent ripples of fear through the chamber. Species that had evolved in relative peace, developing trust-based societies, found it difficult to comprehend the level of long-term deception humanity had maintained. Representative Kala of the Vorian Republic spoke up. Surely their resources are limited. They cannot maintain this level of cyber warfare indefinitely. Vel's laugh was bitter. Representative, you still don't understand. The systems they've deployed aren't just weapons, they're self-replicating. Every network they've compromised becomes another vector for further attacks, and they've had 50 years to plant seeds throughout our infrastructure. On Earth, President Miller sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by military advisors and diplomatic staff. The scale of their retaliation had surprised even humanity's leaders. The Prometheus Protocol had been designed as a deterrent, but its effectiveness had exceeded all projections. Ma'am, General Park reported, we're receiving surrender overtures from 47 different hegemony military commanders. Their chain of command is breaking down as individual units lose contact with higher authority. Admiral Morrison joined the meeting via secure link from Terra Station. Mr. President, we need to make a decision about termination protocols. The longer Prometheus runs, the more damage it causes to civilian infrastructure. Miller nodded grimly. Humanity had always walked a fine line between necessary strength and excessive cruelty. Admiral, what's the minimum acceptable outcome? Complete withdrawal from Sol System, formal recognition of our territorial sovereignty, and binding guarantees against future aggression, Kate replied. Anything less leaves us vulnerable to another attack, and if they refuse. Kate's expression was carefully neutral. Sir, at current propagation rates, the hegemony will lose cohesion as a political entity within 72 hours. Individual systems will start making separate peace agreements to restore their communications. The president felt the weight of human history on his shoulders. Every previous conflict had prepared them for this moment, but the responsibility of wielding such power was crushing. Open a channel to the Hegemony Council. He ordered. Council leader Thax's image appeared on the main screen, his usually perfect composure showing cracks of strain. President Miller, the hegemony is prepared to discuss terms. Council leader, our terms are simple. Complete withdrawal from human space. formal recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and binding non-aggression agreements. In return, we will restore your communication networks and provide technical assistance to repair the damage. These terms are unacceptable, Thax began. But his words were interrupted by urgent whispers from his advisors. Miller waited patiently, as the hegemony leadership conducted hushed consultations. Finally, Thax returned to the screen. President Miller, we require guarantees that humanity will not use these capabilities against other members of the galactic community. Council leader, humanity has never been the aggressor in this conflict. We built our defenses because we learned early that the universe doesn't always reward the peaceful. But we have no interest in conquest, only in survival. The negotiation continued for several more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The hegemony had learned the same lesson that countless enemies throughout human history had discovered. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics, but their absolute refusal to surrender when survival was at stake. As the formal ceasefire took effect and Earth's hackers began the careful process of restoring hegemony communication networks, Kate stood on Terra Station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. 50 years of preparation had culminated in a conflict that lasted less than a day, but the implications would reshape the galactic balance of power for generations. Humanity had finally earned the respect that came not from being liked, but from being too dangerous to threaten. It wasn't the future they had hoped for when they first reached for the stars, but it was the future they had prepared for. And in a universe where survival often depended on strength, that preparation had to make all the difference.